I'm going to be walking you through step by step how to set up and get started with using N8N for finance automation. You will not believe how easy it is to get started and how quickly you can have it up and running. This is going to be just the basics to get you from having no N8N experience to building your first automation. So what is N8N? Well, N8N is a no-code automation tool that scales. That means that you don't have to write Python, you don't have to write R, you can do everything with drag and drop and build it with normal language. You don't need to be a coding expert to use this. It's going to connect all of your tools together: Excel, Power BI, ERPs, Slack, etc. As I mentioned, it's a visual workflow builder. You can drag and drop to automate. You might be familiar with other drag and drop tools. This will include things like there's Power Automate from Microsoft, there's Make, there's Zapier, there's all other tools out there. The big difference for N8N is that it is open source, unlike those other tools that are not. It's open source, it's flexible, which means your data, your rules. As you'll see, you can even self-host it, which gives you a lot more comfort around the security because you can put it on your servers instead of someone else. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it automates all of the boring stuff so you can focus on adding value and the things that really matter. Why is N8N so good for finance automation? Well, it can pull data from multiple systems and it can reconcile them automatically. A lot of the tools we have, like Power Query, are incredible and so powerful. They can bring data in, they can clean data, they can transform the data, but that's then the end of it and they'll move it into Excel. N8N gives us the ability to do other things with that data. We can move it to other systems once it's transformed. We can send emails, we can send Slacks. There's so many things you can do with the data to keep the process moving. Just like a lot of tools we have, you can clean, transform, and merge data, but you can also put in complex logic. You can put in approvals, thresholds, validations. Best of all, it's very affordable and secure because you can self-host it since it has an open source version. It also is very scalable. Make and Zapier and Power Automate have a lot of limits on the number of tokens or credits that you can run. N8N is really designed to scale. You can go beyond single analyst workflows and really automate company-wide processes, well beyond the limits of what a lot of other tools can handle off the shelf. So there's some use cases here that I want to really highlight for you. Think about things like a daily KPI report email. It can go get the KPI information from your source system. It can evaluate it. It can feed it through an AI tool, write commentary, and then send an email about it. You can do the same. You can have a monthly close manager that will let you know dynamically if you're ahead, if you're behind, what tasks you need to do. You can create budget variance alerts. This is actually highlighted because this is going to be the use case we build, because I know nearly everybody in finance has some level of budget versus actuals or some level of approvals they're doing. And this is going to show you how you can have N8N go get data from one system, evaluate that data with conditional logic, and then send an email based on that data if action needs to be taken. You can use this for invoice trackers, which tend to run across multiple systems, weekly forecast rollups. You can collect commentary via Slack, Teams, again, evaluate it, parse it through AI tools. You can even have it update exchange rates and pull them in dynamically whenever you need them for your workflows. There's so many options, but anytime you're moving data from one system to another, or if you're taking data from one system and creating emails, communication, those are perfect use cases for N8N. Now there's some terms that will be really helpful to know before we get started. Most importantly is a workflow. This is your entire automation. You build your workflow on what's called the canvas, just like in Power BI and Tableau. You've got your full automation and it's built from connected steps. The workflow is the entire process from the start of your automation to the end of your automation. Now within the workflow, you have nodes. This is a single step or an action. This is things like get data, send an email, make a decision. There's triggers. Now, triggers are a type of node, but they're a special type of node. They start the workflow or start parts of the workflow. This can be a time-based, like run every day at 8 a.m., or it can be based on if I get an email with budget in the subject line, start this process. There's lots of different options with triggers. An execution is every time your workflow is triggered and runs. That's an execution. And then credentials are the login info for the other systems that N8N is getting from. You can pull in from all kinds of different APIs, direct connects, there's lots of different options. And credentials are how N8N securely stores that information to go be able to query data from different systems, bring it together, and then send it back. If you know these 5 things, you're pretty well along the way of getting started with N8N. Now there's two different ways to set up N8N. Fastest way, but also the most expensive, is cloud setup. You can go right to N8N's website. They will sell you the entire plan. They'll sell you the software, the cloud hosting. You just sign up. It's ready to go. Very similar to a Power Automate, a Make, or a Zapier, but also comes with the price tag of those tools. It is great for learning and for smaller finance workflows, and it is fast. It's less customizable and it's less scalable. Now, self-hosted, this is what I do. This gives you more control, and bonus, it saves a ton of money. You can run this on your own server or a Docker container. It keeps all finance data in-house, which is a huge win for compliance, and it scales much better for larger sensitive automations because it's on your own server. And you'll make your IT team a lot happier because of the security and controls around having it in your own system. I'm going to walk you step by step through how to set up self-hosting through N8N in two different ways. In the first, we're going to do it the completely free way with a couple of extra steps. This is going to involve docking it right on your computer. In the second way, I'm going to show you how for a low amount of money every month, you can self-host N8N. So instead of paying 20, 30, 40, or even 200 a month for their cloud version, you can put it right on your own mini cloud, get all of the benefits while keeping it contained in your space and not signing yourself up for monthly fees. So here is the easy guide to getting started with self-hosting for N8N. So the two options we'll be going over today, one is free and harder, and one is a little bit of money and a lot easier. We'll look at both of them just depending on your budget, but I personally do the easier and small amount of money. We're talking literally a couple bucks a month. It's so much faster, but I also want to make sure you know the totally free version because it's great to be able to spend not a dime and get all this automation power. So for option one, hosting with Docker, we're going to install Docker on our computer. This allows us to plug N8N into essentially a virtual server right on our computer. You could also put it on if you have an actual server, you can use Docker as well. It's great for experimenting and running N8N locally. And then later you can always move it to option two or to a server or whatever you need to do there. Option two, and this is how I have it set up, is hosting on a virtual private server. So you can use a provider like Hostinger, DigitalOcean, or AWS. I personally use Hostinger. It's ideal for production finance workflows that need 24/7 uptime because the server is always running. It doesn't stop if you shut down your laptop. It's very secure. Your data is in a private cloud-based environment, and it lets you schedule jobs, store credentials safely, and scale across a large business while keeping control over the platform. So now let's get started with the totally free version, which is installing with Docker. Now, if you come to N8N's website and you go up to Docs, you're going to find an entire section just on self-hosting N8N. Now, everything you need to know to get up and running, I'm going to show you. And if there's anything you specifically need to enter, I'm going to have it down in the description for you. But this is just here as a backup, so I want to make sure you're aware of it and also just really confirm that N8N is set up for self-hosting to the point that they've got documentation right on the website. If you ever do need help on Docker, it's this first one right here, the Docker installation guide. But again, everything you need to know, I'm going to walk you through step by step right now. So the first thing to do is to install Docker if you don't already have it on your computer. To do that, you go to docker.com. It's totally free. We're going to come here and we're going to go to download Docker desktop. Now here you'll need to know what kind of computer you're working with. I think the average finance person, 80-85% of you are probably going to be on Windows AMD 64. That's the most common. If you're on a PC, you're almost definitely on AMD 64. ARM is most common in non-PC, non-laptop devices, but make sure to check. And then if you're on Apple, it's usually marked on the front of your laptop which one you have. So we're going to go ahead and download for Windows AMD 64. The download will start, we wait for that, and then we run it just like a normal program. Now while that downloads, I'll mention what Docker is. Docker allows you to set up compartments on your computer to run software. It keeps it separate from the rest of your computer so you don't break anything or crash anything, but also it lets the software keep running independently as you restart or reboot your computer, so it's not going to go away. It's like a mini computer in your computer that's going to let you do things like operating N8N. All right, so let's go ahead and run this like a normal installation. I'll skip ahead to the next part. You've all installed software before, just run the prompts and I'll catch you back with Docker desktop open. So we've installed Docker, we've opened Docker, and now it's setting up the engine so we can get working on our N8N setup. So you'll most likely open up on Docker Hub. You could really open anywhere. We're going to use a few of the buttons up here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to the volumes. So let's click on volumes, and in volumes, we want to create an N8N installation. So let's go ahead and hit create. and we'll call this data. So this is going to create the volume. This is that mini computer in your computer where it's going to store this separately on your hard drive. So now we've got our data underscore n8n. Our volume is set up and ready. So now with our volume built, we're going to go over to images, and here we're going to search images to run. Now the really great thing is we don't have to go anywhere else and download anything. N8N is available in Docker. So you'll search N8N, you'll see N8N.io, N8N, and we're going to pull this down into our container. So again, you don't need to go to N8N and download this. It's going to be able to pull right into Docker with its image. Now the poll is in progress. Once this is done, then we'll set up our container. While it downloads, let's get our time zone. I'll put this Wikipedia link to the official time zone names. Scroll down and find your time zone. In my instance, we'll be looking for America/New York, because I'm in the Eastern time zone for the United States. All right, here's America, New York, which is the standard one. And make sure you get this phrase exactly. America/New York _ make sure whatever your time zone identifier is, you get it exactly how it's written. We're going to need that for N8N. So now we've got our image here. We're going to go ahead and run this and get our container set up. So we want to run a new container with N8N. And here's where we need to put in some of those optional settings that I mentioned. So we're going to go ahead and call this N8N. Our host port is going to be 5678. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm going to have all this down in the description, so don't worry too much about copying it down right now. Our host path is going to be the name we created when we were doing our volume, so that's going to be N8N_data. And then we're going to point it to the home node for N8N. And then we need to add a couple of variables that N8N requires us to define. So the first one, we'll use that time zone that we got. So we'll pop in generic time zone, and this value is going to be America, New York. That's for me. You'll put in whatever is relevant to you. We're going to do the exact same thing again, referencing the TZ code. So we'll put TZ in there, and then we're going to do the same thing for America, New York. All right, now we're going to do enforce settings file permission. Again, for you, you'll just have to copy and paste this. That's going to be true. We'll do one more. This one is going to be N8N runners, and all of this I'm getting from the N8N documentation, but again, I'll have it down below for you to copy and paste. That's going to be true. All right, now we'll go ahead and run this, again, running it on our little mini computer that we built in Docker. All right, you'll see here that everything is being created. So Docker is creating N8N, it's accessing the image, it's getting everything all set up for us to use. See, the process is still running. And now once you see this message that says editor is now accessible via, this means you can now access via your browser using this link. So I'll go ahead and click this link. So now you're able to access your own N8N instance through your browser. It's pointing to that special mini computer within your computer on your computer, but you're able to access to the browser just like you would with any other instance of N8N. You'll set up your account just like you would on the cloud version, and you're ready to go. So sure, this took a couple of steps, but I really want you to know this because it's really just a little bit of copying and pasting. You follow this video, you do all the steps in order. You're going to have N8N running totally free on your computer. You will not have to spend a dime on this setup ever. Now let's go ahead and move to the next setup, which is using a virtual private server. It's going to save you 60 to 70% over buying it from N8N, but it's going to be set up in a few clicks of the button. So if you really don't want to go through the setup of Docker, now I'll show you how to do it the same way that I do it with a virtual private server. It'll run all the time. It'll cost you just a few bucks a month. You'll save 60 to 70% over doing it through N8N, and it'll be ready in just a few minutes. Now here's how I run N8N, because as I mentioned, if you're using N8N on your computer, well, if you turn your computer off, it's not going to be able to run workflows. And I want to make sure that my workflows can run all the time, even when I'm not actively using them. So while it's great to be able to practice or be able to run some local things on your computer, I want to make sure that my processes can run all the time. So for that, I use a VPS or a virtual private server. Here we are, we're on Hostinger website, hostinger.com, and you'll see right here on the right side of the menu, self-hosted N8N. It is truly a platform that Hostinger supports, and they have dedicated VPS setups that will help you get this rolling in just seconds. Honestly, I found it faster setting up N8N using Hostinger than even setting up N8N on N8N's cloud-based website. Once you're through the payment process, it may take Hostinger 5 to 10 minutes to get you set up, but then you're going to come to your domain and it's going to look just like this. So you'll see here I've got my virtual private server. It's running N8N on the cloud. We'll go into manage. And you'll see here all of the information with N8N running. Again, Hostinger will have this all installed and set up and ready for you to use. You can access it two ways. You can either go directly to this link right here, or you can go to Manage App. Now, if you want to be really fancy, you can point your domain directly to this. So, well, this is my regular domain. I actually have this set up where I can go to n8n.f9finance.com and I'll come right into my N8N instance because I've moved it to point to my domain. You don't need to be that fancy. Just be aware it's something you can do outside the scope of this video, but there's a lot of great documentation right here on Hostinger for how to do it. And that's really all there is to it. It's up and running. It took a couple of seconds. You have your own N8N instance and you're ready to go. And again, processes here, if you set them up on a schedule, they'll run all the time, even if your computer's shut down. It doesn't get much easier than that. So this is N8N's website, n8n.io. This is where you can get the paid cloud versions of N8N. It's also where you can download the self-hosted community version. So we look around, we have all kinds of features here. One of the absolute best things on this website is right here under product. We can go to templates and you're going to find over 6,000 existing workflow automation templates. You can download these, you can pull them straight into your N8N environment, and it's a really great way to either learn. So some people build things like how to build your first AI agent, learn N8N basics, or there's also things you can put into practice in your business, in your job today. So the templates are incredibly powerful. So this is the N8N environment. So when you open it up, you'll see all of your available workflows. You'll see how much has been running, and you of course have a button ready to create a workflow. Now, we mentioned credentials. These are going to be your connections to other platforms. So you'll see I have connections here to Google Sheets, Gmail, and Google Drive because that's what we're going to use. And then I can see my executions, which has all been from me testing the platform that we're going to be going through today. I showed you earlier that there were templates. You can find all the templates directly in here. There's some pre-built AI agents. There's some templates that are tutorials for you. And then you can hit view all templates to go back to that exact same website I showed you earlier where you can get templates and it will pull right into your N8N instance. So let's go back to our overview and we're going to go ahead and hit this button to create a new workflow. So now this is where you'll spend almost all of your time in N8N. I want to walk you through exactly what you're looking at here. So this is the canvas. This is where you will build your automation. This is where you'll add all your individual nodes as we talked about. You can come in here and you can add notes if you want to add information. I'm a note. Very helpful. If you want to audit them or if you want to review what's happening, you can go to executions, and this is going to show you how many times and in what way it's been refreshed. And then evaluations allows you to feed data in to test it through multiple iterations to make sure that it's going to be stable for you. That's a little bit more advanced, but good to know that the options here. And really then it all comes down to adding the nodes. A note on navigation, because this took me way too long to figure out. If you want to move freely around the canvas, hit the control button, you'll see the little hand, and then you can just drag it. So I don't know why that took me so long to figure out, but there we go. So you can do that again. If you do this, you're just going to get a little bar to select nodes, make sure to hit control, and then you can move yourself around. And of course, down here, you've got all the navigation buttons, zoom in, zoom out, tidy up, which will automatically kind of snap all the nodes into position. So let's go ahead and add our first step. Now, your first step essentially always needs to be a trigger. So when I hit add first step, I'm going to get all of the triggers for the work. I can search through this or I can just kind of look down the list. A manual trigger means that you have to click the button to start it. On an app event means something happens in another app you're connected to. On a schedule, you're going to say the date, time, day of the week, whatever you want to do when it runs. You can do it if there's a HTTP request or webhook. That'll be a little bit more advanced. You can do it when someone submits a form. You can have it triggered by another workflow triggering it. You can do it if you're using AI on a chat message. You can set this up to run on an evaluation. And then, of course, there's a few other ways that get more advanced. We're really going to focus right now on just on a schedule because I want you to get the basic feel for this down. So let's go ahead and hit on a schedule. So then this is what it looks like as you start to design a node. Everything you'll see right now, we're at the trigger. Aside from that, everything is going to have an input and an output. A trigger is the first input, so you're not seeing the input on the left. I'll show you that on the next screen. But we'll start with the trigger, and then we have the output. So every time we do something, we have the data coming in and the data going out, and they will conversely be on the left and the right. We want to set here is we want to do this as a custom running with a cron job. Cron means that this can run on a specific schedule we designate versus if we just did this we could do this every hour, every day. You don't need to set up cron, but we're going to do this on a cron because typically we'll want our finance reports to run on specific days of the week. Now, if you're not familiar with cron, I'll tell you, I don't personally know cron. I'm not a developer. I'm in finance. You can find help generating it here. So this is the cron table guru. There will be all these options of how often you want the cron to run. You can just click on this, like we're going to say every day at 8 a.m. because that's pretty good for a finance process. It's going to generate the cron for us, which will be by the minute, the hour, the day, the month, the weekday. So it's going to say, don't care about the minute on the 8th hour, every day, every month, every weekday. We're going to go ahead and copy this. We'll paste it over here. N8N recognizes that as valid, and then we execute the step, which means it's be ready to feed data into the next step as we develop. We'll hit execute step. And here's the output. So the step has run, our trigger's ready, and it will run every day at 8 a.m. So we can go ahead and close out, and now you'll see it's all set up. It's green, which means it's operational, it's tested, and it's ready to go. Of course, at any time, if you want to test the workflow, you can always just hit the execute workflow button, but otherwise, this is set up to run every day at 8 a.m. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to get data from Google Sheets. So we're going to go ahead and add Google Sheets. And this is the first time that we will need to set up a credential so that we can talk to Google Sheets. Now, the last time we went to add a node, it was just the triggers, but now we have availability to do anything. It says right here, what happens next. Now I can search or I can come down to the list. Starting from top to bottom, we can add AI tools. So there's all kinds of different AI things. This is going to be a later video we're going to do next week. You can take an action in an app. This is what we're going to use right now. We want to take action in Google Sheets. You can do data transformation. So as you're bringing data in, you can do transformation similar if you've ever used Power Query. If you've watched any of my videos on Power Query, there's all kinds of different tools you can use to manage data as it comes through N8N. Flow, these are things that happen within N8N. So you can do filters, if then, loop over, merges. We're going to look at if then because it's very common since you've been working in Excel with if then functions. So we're going to look at that because that's an important way to understand how to use the kind of internal functions for N8N, but use it in a way that you're familiar with. There's core. So this allows you to do things within the N8N core. It allows you to run code if you want to do things with like Python or JavaScript. It allows the ability to do that. That's well beyond the scope of this video. A really cool thing we'll look at with AI agents is there's human in the loop. So if you're running an AI agent, again, we'll look at this next week, you can pause, you can have it go look for a human through one of these channels to answer the question before it continues. Think about a budget approval. If it's a little gray if something should be approved, it can go to a human to make the final decision. You can also add another trigger. If you want there to be multiple ways to kick this process off, you can have another trigger in here. But for right now, we're going to go to action and app. I'm just going to search here for Google Sheets. There it is. Now we're going to add Google Sheets. So what we want to do is we've got a file in Google Sheets that's extracting data from our point of sale system, and we want to evaluate our performance against budget to create kind of a daily report of sorts that we don't have to run. So we're going to want to get rows from that sheet. So we're going to go ahead and click Get Rows in Sheet. You're then going to see this come up. So I mentioned before, you're always going to have your input and your output. So we've got what comes in, the action we're taking in this node, and then what comes out of the node. So there's three different ways to look at all of this. There's the schema. This is going to be kind of the line items coming in. You'll see those here, timestamp, day of the week. We can go to table. This is the view you're probably most familiar with and maybe best to use as you get used to N8N. And then there's JSON, which is the straight coding. This is definitely more advanced. We'll get to that in future videos, but for now, just focus on schema or table, and I'd probably recommend table. Then we need to connect a credential that lets us get data from Google Sheets. Now, I've already got one connected, but I'll show you how you would do this. So we would hit Create New Credential. This is going to come up and say, for what we've selected, this is exactly what you need to do. The great news is anytime there's a connection, if you need help filling this out and you don't know quite how to use it, you can just hit Open Documentation. And it's going to tell you exactly what to do step by step. So this is step by step how to get the credential you'll need for your Google Sheets account. You're going to get that information following these steps. You're going to come back here. You're going to copy and paste in the client ID and the client secret. In this case, that's what Google will give you if you're following this. It'll keep saying, if you haven't filled this in, please go open the docs. We'll tell you exactly how to do it. So you go over for whatever you're adding, just follow these step-by-step instructions. They're really easy to use with screenshots. It's really well done. Come back over here, paste it in, and then you're going to have something that looks like this where you can select My Google Sheets account, which is going through the Google API. So we'll select that. Then you're going to select where you want to go in Google, and the operation is still getting rows. So in this case, I want to go to my F9 Finance Coffee Shop Financials, and I want to pull it from GL data, which is conveniently the only sheet. There's other things you can do if you want to filter at this point. You can do that right in here, but all we want to do is just pull, because again, I'm keeping this the most basic, assuming that you've never worked with N8N before. We'll go ahead, we'll hit Execute Step. So now we've seen our input, which is the trigger. This step is getting rows in the sheets, and the output is that data that is sitting in our Google Sheet. I've got it up here for reference so you can kind of see what you see over here. This is the Google Sheet, a typical GL export coming from our financial system. Got our account, our location, date, actuals, and budget. And you'll see all of that over here: account, location, date, actuals, budget, and then it's added row numbers just for the reference of the system. All right, so we've got this node all built out. Now the next node is where we're going to need to evaluate the data that came in. So now we're going to be adding an if-then node. So that's going to be a flow, because this is going to be functionality within N8N. So we'll go ahead and hit if, and this is going to create two different branches and separate the branches, doing a different flow with if. So this is going to let us separate into two branches if it is true or if it is false. So what we want to do here is we've got all the information coming in over here. Again, input, output, that's really important, so I'll keep saying it. And we've got our actuals and our budget. So now this is where it gets super easy with the drag and drop. All I have to do is come over here and say, if my actuals, I can just drag that in there. A lot of different options here, just like in Excel. If my actuals are greater than my budget times 1.1. So what this is saying is I want to take my budget, and if it's more than 10% over budget, then I want to take action on this. So that's what I'm saying. If my actuals are greater than budget, we'll go ahead and execute this step, and now you'll see it's split into two branches. We have a true branch saying, yes, actuals are over budget. So here you can see the cost of sales for a story. It was budgeted at $84,000. It came in at $105,000, so it has flagged this. And then the false branch means everything is under budget. Now, when we come back to the chart, you'll see it's actually split. So now we've got this separate node over here for true, and we have a separate node for false. It has split the data, and we can now take different actions on them. Now, in this case, if it's false, if it's under budget, we're going to do nothing. We're just going to let it end. It's going to stop there, and no further action will be taken. But if it's true, that's where we're going to need to go ahead and send an email. So I'm going to come over here. In this case, I'm just going to be using kind of the F9 Finance Gmail suite. You could do this through Outlook or whatever you need to. We're going to go to Action and App. We're going to search for Gmail. We'll pull this up, and here, I personally usually with this will create a draft because I want to review the email first. So we'll create a draft, but you could also just have it directly send the email once you have this kind of tested and running and comfortable. But for a new process, I like it to draft it. I can come see the email, make sure I'm happy with it, and hit send myself. And then once I'm comfortable with the process that it's working as intended, we can start to do the full automation of having it send itself. But always be a little bit more cautious on that side so you don't have crazy emails going out. You're going to do the same thing as before to create a credential. You'll see it looks exactly like the other one did, except instead of Google Sheets, it's Gmail. You're going to fill it out the same way. Again, there will always be instructions. Just follow those step-by-step instructions to set up your credential. All right, so I've got my Gmail account connected. I want this to go to a draft, but you can do a message, a label, a draft, thread, whatever you want. The operation is going to be create the draft. We can also delete, get many, all kinds of options. Our subject line is going to be budget alert over 10% threshold. The email type will be text. We'll keep it simple. And then I've got the message we want over here. So this message is going to say the following cost centers exceeded budget. The account is at actuals versus budget. So it will say, this is what's over. This is how it's over. We'll go ahead and execute that step. It's going to run the output. This will take a little bit longer because it's going to Gmail to create those drafts. All right, so it says it's created all of the messages. Here's the IDs. So coming to my drafts in my inbox, you're going to see here are all of the budget alerts. So here's a budget alert over 10% threshold. Mind you, I'm running this on the full data set. It's only going to run new items. It's not going to run existing items. So you're not going to have this many emails. It's just the first time it's running. Labor is at 144,000 versus a budget of 130,000. So it is more than 10% over threshold. Now that email is all there and ready to go. And that is our simple workflow. Now just imagine, you can add complexity and layers, but ultimately it comes down to you have an event that triggers it. Then you have actions taken and you can make decisions along the way. Actions taken can be getting data from different systems, evaluating the data, transforming the data, having systems talk. So it's all about a triggering or inciting event, then the actions you want to take. Think about it like if you're running a finance process. What are the actions that you're taking along the way? Each action becomes a node. Every time you go and download data, that's a node. Every time you do something to that data, that's a node. And you're just putting that down here in writing and then connecting it all together and then using those credentials to connect.